the analogy I often give is to invest in aspirin versus vitamins. Then an aspirin is going to really solve your headache in a good way, whereas the vitamin is going to make you maybe feel a bit better, but over a long period of time. But you really try to hone in big critical problems. And because water is both complex and complicated. And we need to have solutions that address the complexity of the industry, but in a very simple way.
Welcome to the Make Water Work podcast, where we dive into the people, ideas, and innovations shaping the future of water. I'm your host, Isaac Pellerin, and alongside my co-host, Megan Glover, the founder of 120 Water, we bring you insights from hundreds of incredible conversations we've had over the past 9 years with inspiring and energizing leaders in the water industry. Each week, we share those stories and conversations with entrepreneurs, community champions, and innovators who are making water work for everyone. Whether you're a water professional, a curious innovator, or simply passionate about our most precious resource, this podcast is for you. Let's get started. Welcome to the Make Water Work podcast, where we celebrate the people leading, serving, and innovating within the water industry. Megan, we are having such a fun time having these conversations, and we have a special one today. Tell us who our guest is.
Yes. So our guest today is Simon Olivier. And Simon leads an impact fund called Cycle H2O that is dedicated to water technologies. And Cycle H2O has been established in partnership with Cycle Capital and H2O Innovation Inc. And we're going to learn more about this kind of innovative partnership to the fund and the fund's the innovative venture capital structure that they've formed. But could not be more excited to hear from Simon about the fund and all the wonderful technologies they're invested in. So,
that's awesome.
Simon, without further ado, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Megan and Isaac, for the invitation.
Yes. But it's wonderful to have you here and wonderful to get to know you a bit more and all the wonderful work you're doing in water to make it work day in and day out. We've never met anybody in this industry that doesn't have a really interesting story about how water found them. So if you wouldn't mind kicking us off, how did water find you?
Yeah, very, very personal story. Water found me in a doctor's office. And what really happened is I'm a big passionate of water, swimming, sailing, scuba diving. And when I turned 50, I started to have skin eruption, asthma when swimming in lakes here around Quebec. I went to my doctor and I said, "Doctor, I have a problem." And after several examinations, the doctor said, "Good news is you're in excellent shape. The problem is not you, is the water you swim in." And as an engineer, that got me really, really curious to say, how can that be? I thought there were a lot of solutions. And I went to talk to the startup and the solution provider. And I said, "You're aware of all those problems. Why are you not scaling up?" And the answer was, "We'd love to, but we don't have access to capital." I said, there might be an opportunity there to really help them out. And that's how the idea started forming around launching a startup, an investment fund, venture capital to support those early stage startups.
I love that story. You had a very personal problem. You understood what the solution might be able to be, and then Cycle H2O was formed. So tell us then a little bit more about the fund and the dynamics of the fund that makes that a bit unique.
When we started to think about what is the best way to go, we said we need to join the best expertise and experience as well in terms of financial expertise and experience and also industry.
Okay.
Then decided to partner with Cycle Capital, which is the largest clean tech VC platform in Canada, about $700 million under management, and partnered also with H2O Innovation. They used to be publicly traded, but they privatized a couple of years ago. That is really kind of an starting partner in terms of market intelligence and technology insights. They now operate in about 75 countries around the world with 1,200 employees. And that's how we really formed the venture capital, which is really unique and innovative. Then joining forces with an existing successful investment platform and coupling that with a kind of renowned leader, which is H2O Innovation.
Yeah. No. That is, and I think really to point out that is really unique. And I think one of the things that stood out with us when we met Simon Isaac is just all of the additional support that either from the finding these companies to then the post transaction resources and support to match them with strategics that can help kind of commercialize the technologies faster, because we know that can be a headache in water. And so I think just kudos for you, Simon, realizing the entire ecosystem that it takes to actually get water technology from idea to actual commercialization and adoption.
Yeah, and so much of the need whenever we talk about this too is that there's plenty of entrepreneurs who have ideas and maybe have a solution to a problem, but building the infrastructure to have the business around that problem is sometimes a challenge. And so having good partners where they're not just providing finances, they're also providing our mission aligned and providing the structure to really help them support is really important. And so I feel like that's what really sticks out about your fund.
Yeah, we like to be called like strategic investor, and we're really hands-on investor, and we like the founders to really control, make all the decision, and lead the growth of the company. But we're there as a kind of quarterback to help them out and provide guidance where we can, and to really accelerate the journey. The biggest issue or problem with water is that it's slow. And you look at other type of industries and it's a lot faster. And that was really our mission, to say, hey, how can we kind of remove bottlenecks and help speed things up? Because the problems, they're growing very rapidly.
Yes,
and
yes.
we need to make sure that the solutions keep up with the fast pace of problem emergence. And that's how we structured it.
Yeah. Yeah. So Simon, you brought it up, water and then other industries. In your background, you've served other industries, energy, sustainability, corporate development, and startups. Were you were you surprised at the pace that water moves, or what, or based on your experience in other industries, kind of what surprised you about water, and what's maybe the same, some patterns that you've recognized from the other industries you've been a part of?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's probably benefit of being more mature and hopefully smarter, is that you can learn from other industries.
Exactly.
And look at some benchmarks and best practices. And I grew up mainly in the energy sector, and I look back at what we were working on 20 years ago, the famous 3Ds, right? Digitization, decentralization, decarbonization. That was the early days. And you fast forward 20 years later and you find the water industry working on those different initiatives. Then there's a lot of benchmarks that can be applied. And when you start at really kind of diving deeper in the water industry, you look at it's becoming more and more multidisciplinary.
Okay.
You look at now the health tech sector caring about the water industry when it comes to measure, detect pathogens in the water. Then there's some technology that are imported from the healthcare sector. You look at aerospace with satellites to look at droughts and flooding zone. You look at really kind of several industries bring the best practices. The telecommunication industry in terms of gathering data and making our water smarter. Then that's kind of what we're looking at, is we are kind of looking at 360, and to make sure, to the element of speed I was talking earlier, that we can learn from other industries and apply it in a very faster way to the water industry.
No, I think that's a great point, and maybe because we can say we've been there, we've done that, maybe a different application, but similar technology, maybe our risk adverse water industry might be faster to adopt, right? In theory, and hopefully that's the case, right? What are some, I guess you touched on some technologies, and I know, because I know some of the companies in your portfolio. Can you just describe just the type of technologies that you're investing in, and kind of what are the markers of the good technologies that you're looking at when you're thinking about your portfolio?
Yeah, it's such a relevant question because water is so broad and ubiquitous. It could be all sorts of technology, hardware and software. What we tend to do is look at a solution, a technology that solves a real big critical problem.
Okay.
And the analogy I often give is to invest in aspirin versus vitamins.
Yeah.
And an aspirin is going to really solve your headache in a good way, whereas the vitamin is going to make you maybe feel a bit better, but over a long period of time. But we really try to hone in big critical problems. And because water is both complex and complicated.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we need to have solutions that address the complexity of the industry, but in a very simple way.
Mm-hmm.
Then we look at what kind of problem is being solved and addressed. Is the technology scalable? Is it simple enough to be adopted
Yeah.
fast enough by the end user? And I was always coming back to this element of speed to make sure that it's scalable and deployable. Then that's kind of how we tend to look at the different investment opportunities.
Yeah. And I think that's important because I think it's important for entrepreneurs to know that not every problem that's being solved meets that criteria, and that's okay. It might not become a business that scales, but it might find its home in other areas, in other places. I do think it's interesting too when, so you're based in Montreal in Canada. Now, Canada has like 20% of the freshwater resources in the world. And so what makes Canada a good place for water technology when you have so much clean drinking water?
Yeah, that was such a big question I got asked early days when I was traveling around fundraising about this fund. And people questioned me, said, Simon, what are you kind of thinking? It's kind of Canada, we've got lots of water, and it's not only plentiful, but it's free. Then what are you thinking about launching an investment fund in that space? And when you look at it closer, then I think we have the responsibility, abundance, create responsibility in terms of stewardship and kind of caring for what we have so much of. And that responsibility translate into opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what I had to explain in terms of the narrative, is that because we've got lots of water, historically it attracted most of kind of the world's expert in terms of labs, research center, and we've got so much gray matter here in terms of brain power.
Yeah. And
that's been established over the last decade. And that translated into companies being very innovative. You think of the Xenon that got acquired by GE, where I worked for 20 years. You look at Trojan, and you look at 79% of the Canadian-based water companies are exporter. And when you look at what does that mean for startups, it leads that we're number 5 globally in terms of IP related to water technology.
Yeah.
Then I'm currently tracking over 700 companies, like startups, across the country from coast to coast. And the fact that we're having lots of water, that creates what I call a natural lab to test and kind of develop those technologies that will become scalable and to export them afterwards.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So far, for the last kind of 5 years, it was a very well-kept secret, but some of my good friends working at Burnt Island Ventures, at Mazarine, Echo River Capital, learned about that, and they've invested in Canadian-based companies. Then we see that we're at the cusp of the kind of emergence of something that's got tremendous potential. And the fact that we've got water, it's an endowment that we need to take care of and to really for the future generation. And one of the solution is to invest in innovation.
I love that. Do you think that the mindset in Canada is a little bit more innovative than, let's say, compared to the US when you think about innovation? Like, what's your experience been in terms of willingness to adopt startups or technologies in Canada versus maybe some other countries you've worked with?
It's evolving. It's getting better, which is the good news. You look at, the two benchmark globally that looking at is Israel and Singapore
Sure.
in terms of water tech innovation.
Yep.
They're at the forefront. But here, a few years ago, the government decided to create a Canadian Water Agency. And that really kind of supported several accelerator, Aqua Action, 2 Degrees, Cycle Momentum. And we see the mindset changing in a good way, very, very fast. And it's, I think it's a team sport innovation. Now we're seeing more players playing with us, which is amazing. And, but we're not at where we'd love to be. But that creates opportunities, right? And we've got kind of some ways to go. But the trend is very positive.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say even maybe a little bit more so positive than certain places, in the US. I mean, I just remember someone saying to me, actually, it was an investor, some sort of investment, I'm not going to name names, didn't work out as expected. And so when we went in to pitch the idea at 120, they said, well, listen, we put our eggs in that basket. We didn't like the way it goes, so we're not going to do any more of those. I thought, my gosh, like what a such a short-sighted mindset, right? Like just, you did one water investment, didn't go as expected. So now we're putting ourselves out of that game. And I think that mindset is also within the utility when they invest in innovation and it doesn't go as planned or a pilot fails, then that has a bad taste in their mouth for all innovation. And, part of
if you're not doing a good enough after action review to be like, hey, what went wrong? What could be improved? We're still open to new ideas.
Yeah, it's that mindset of like, we just have not everything we're going to deploy is going to be successful, right? But, just kind of understanding the expectation setting and being open-minded to what innovation actually does and what it can do. And it's a mindset, to your point. I'm kind of going off at a tangent, but it is a mindset, Simone. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. Yep. So I guess of the 100, 700 plus companies that you're tracking, are there any themes on kind of some technologies emerging or in like industries within those technologies that you're particularly bullish on that you'd be willing to share?
Yeah, I think it's all about water security, right? It's in terms of availability and quantity of water. And everyone is kind of struggling to really kind of have access, which creates some water security. I look at both the utilities and the industrial customers that we work with. They've got challenges, either that the water is not as good as they think it is. They need to kind of invest in kind of cleaning it up, or the supply is not as reliable. And that creates kind of operational issues. And we see that in Canada, but we see that in the US and in Europe and everywhere. And now when I say water security, that leads or translate into end users wanted to invest in their own destiny, really to control their destiny. And water security leads to water reuse.
Yes.
Then right now, I mean, we're kind of recycling paper, plastic, glass, and kind of lots of resources, but yet we don't recycle water as much as we should. And knowing it's a finite, limited resource, now people are opening up, say, hey, maybe I should kind of reuse it and recycle it. Then the whole concept of reuse, there's a bunch of sub-elements because you need to treat it. Then treatment is, of course, but even among before treating it, you need to understand what's in it. And sensing, like data acquisition, is part of it. And the whole kind of system-wise to really kind of recycle water is really high on our priority list.
Yes.
And we see that as a macro trend. You look at the conventional water, kind of lakes, river, aquifers that are depleting rapidly. And that created kind of alternative sources of water, desalination. It's good, but it's expensive and not available everywhere. The biggest opportunity we see is to recycle, reuse the water that we currently have.
Yes. Yeah. Could not agree more from this side of the chair. I think this whole notion of, distributed operations, putting commercial, industrial, even to extent, residential ecosystems within their own destiny to kind of control their one water environment, from how they treat their own water, specific to their needs, to how they reuse and recycle. It just seems so natural, doesn't it? And maybe that's just us being in the industry and knowing what's possible and being like, why aren't we all doing this?
It does, but to your earlier point, Megan, it's about mindset.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And there's a lot of, we need to kind of prove that it works, and more importantly, that it's cheaper.
That's a
both
great
for the
point.
environment and their balance sheet to do that. It's typically customers, they pay twice for their water. They pay to get fresh water, and they pay to treat it afterwards.
Yep.
Whereas when you recycle it, you pay for it once, right? And in the long run, it's cheaper economically, but also environmentally.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really key. I recently was at an event, all based on how utilities use AI, and also how utilities need to prepare for the demand of water demand as it relates to data centers, and at least in northern North America, where we have, or in the U.S. where we have Minnesota, that's land of 1,000 lakes. So they maybe blend into that water-rich environment that that Canada enjoys. But I'm curious what the climate is like, because that's one of the drivers of water reuse, I believe, right now is somewhat tied to the demand for data centers. And so I'm kind of curious what the climate is like in Canada as it relates to the data center conversation.
Yeah, the climate literally is one of the most conducive for data centers because it's cold, then you need less heating. We've got abundant water, then that helps. And our energy, electricity, is very cheap.
Yeah.
Therefore, it attracts tremendous interest globally from kind of to build data centers here. And you've seen Amazon, Bell Canada, like looking at $1 billion projects all across the nation here from West Coast to East Coast. But we want to make sure that those are sustainable, that we get jobs, right? That we build some added value out of it.
Yeah.
But it put tremendous stress on the water. I mean, last year there was about 64 billion liters of water used for data centers. Fast forward 5 years from now, we're going to probably exceed 100 billion liters of water.
Wow.
Then when you think about how do you get the public acceptance, the community engagement to say, hey, now we're going to kind of give up that much water for that. What do we get in return? Then that's kind of a debate. But the interest is all-time high. And we're going to see how it's going to evolve. But we've got the kind of the right setting, the right climate, to your point, Isaac, to really lead the way from a data center point of view.
Yeah. I think that that's what's interesting and is so important, is that there's the technology from what I hear is there's a lot of technology that's incredibly efficient with every drop of water. But moving the needle on how we're transparent, how we gain the social license and get the social contract right to be able to operate is where a lot of the work needs to be done by all stakeholders.
That's right.
But we need to be mindful because we talk a lot about data center, but this is the tip of the iceberg. Really, where the water is mainly consumed and used is for the energy required for the data center.
Yep.
And even more so is for the chip manufacturing.
Yes.
And people maybe are not as aware, but those chip manufacturers use kind of billions and billions of liters and gallons of water. And that puts tremendous pressure where those are being manufactured. And on the energy side, the data center operation, it's still a lot. But we see that as a tip of the iceberg, and we tend to invest in solution all across the spectrum from a chip manufacturer using kind of membrane and high efficiency membranes to energy production to kind of running and operating the data centers.
Yeah, yeah. Well said. And I think just knowing this is a tip of the iceberg, it gets me excited for, I think, the innovation that's going to come because of it, because we're not just going to allow us, I hope we don't allow ourselves just to continue to operate and absorb the cost of the operation. Rather, we see it as an opportunity to get more innovative, right? And how on the technology that we use to actually shrink that footprint of energy and manufacturing and so on and so forth. So
Yeah, and we're seeing positive trends there. I mean, to use non-potable water
yes,
for
exactly.
cooling of data center, it's not high innovation, right? It's probably one of the lowest innovation, but it's smart and
Yes,
it's kind
yeah,
of efficient.
yeah.
Then you need to be open-minded about really kind of how to run it and with the long-term view on the kind of impacts down the road as well.
Yeah. Again, it's one of those things, maybe because we're in it, it does not seem innovative to us, but it's amazing to me how that's not part of the conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, that is not, it's where are we going, where are we going to get our fresh water from to power these plants? It's like, why do we need fresh treated water to power these plants? Like, I don't know, just, yeah. But, we have a lot of founders that we support and listen to in this podcast, and just curious. We always like to give them a glimpse in what the investor's thinking, right? Think like an investor. Think, if you want to get your business capitalized or scale your business, maybe think more like an investor or anticipate what the investor's thinking. So what advice would you have for founders listening to this that maybe have an idea or looking for capital? What advice would you give them for someone coming to you?
Yeah, the first advice is surround yourself with smart and very capable people. And that's probably cliche. You probably hear that all the time, but we've seen cases that you've got a solo founder, being kind of wicked smart, having the best technology. But then comes time to commercialize, to be a bit more strategic. And they really need to build a team.
Yeah.
But some of the feedback I get is, yeah, but it's hard, right? To find kind of alignment of personality. But my view on this is, if you believe in your solution, that your solution is that great,
Yeah.
you need to be able to sell it to a potential partner of yours. Otherwise, how are you going to be able to sell it to an end user or customer, right?
Yeah.
Then you need to sell it to kind of proximity. And if you're so passionate about it, because it works and you believe in a great future, you should be able to excite and really get somebody else engaged to join you on this journey. It's that's something that is really critical. But that doesn't stop there. I think once they have a team, they need to learn to let go and trust, to make sure that everything has to go through them.
Yeah.
And delegation is probably one of the hardest thing when you've created something out of hard work and labor and sweat over time. Sometimes to let go is hard, right? It's almost like when your kid goes to college or abroad and you say, I'm going to miss you, but you need to trust the process. Then I'd say two things: hire kind of or partner with kind of capable people, and make sure that you trust, delegate to maximize the bandwidth. This is probably one of the common advice that I see in the marketplace.
Yeah. That's I feel like in time that I've spent with early stage entrepreneurs or doing consulting with early stage businesses, it often is, what is their capacity to be able to listen to healthy critique and have someone like, anyone who has a great idea. I'm like, as soon, your world should feel like it gets rocked a little bit when you finally have a customer who says, yeah, I don't like this, this, and this. Like, they're going to tell you what they don't like. So you need to know how to let go of your ideal solution or the ideal way that you thought people were going to buy it. It might be a surprise. There might be a channel along the way, or the connection on with someone that you hire or build around as a partner that you leave yourself open to discovery.
Yeah.
The best trait that I find is kind of people that continue being kind of student of learning.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
It's people that they believe in something, they're really focused,
Yep.
but they can really kind of listen, learn from the customer. They become almost like a PhD in a customer,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and they really kind of understand the need, their mindset, and they kind of adapt. And the key in a founder is to kind of fall in love with the problem, not as much their solution, because they're going to probably pivot 2, 3, 4 times.
Yeah.
Oh,
And that takes
absolutely.
time and money.
Yeah.
Then us as investor, we tend to kind of follow and coach them as much as possible to limit the number of pivots. And the faster, the sooner they fall in love with the problem, their solution becomes way better almost overnight.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all capability of being able to learn and to remain a student. And we think that because we've got a degree, a diploma from a PhD in something, that the learning stops, but it only starts at that time.
Yeah, I love how you led with surround yourself with great people, because I do think, especially for first time founders, there's the you don't want to appear naive and or that you don't know what you're doing. But I think when you realize that, to be vulnerable and say, I have gaps. Every natural human being has gaps, and part of my role as a founder, as a leader, is to try to surround myself and fill those gaps. And I wish we were having more of those conversations earlier on in the investment process, to even like strength finders, like, as a founder, where are we going to double down on your strengths? And then as a part of intended use of funds, where can we then double down in these other areas versus just, okay, show me on the forecast how many roles you're going to hire and what are the seats you need to fill. But why are we filling those seats? Let's have that question. Well, why are we filling those seats, to make sure that we're also not pivoting on the leadership team, because that needs to stay as constant, in my opinion, through some of these like investment milestones as the product itself. And if we don't get that layer of investment right early on, I think it can actually take, years and cycles away from actually driving the value that we need.
And that's one element where we diverge from our motto of speed. I mean, we love speed, generally speaking, and we like to kind of fast. But the one element where we really take our time is to really kind of on our due diligence and to reach our decision to invest or not invest. Not because it's a long process, because we want to make sure that we get to know the entrepreneurs, the founders, on a more intimate basis. To your point, Megan, about vulnerability. And when you first talk to them, they have an approach that fake it till you make it a little bit, right? Then it's say, everything is going to be great, everything is going to work. But we want to build that relationship, that rapport, to really have honest discussion. Because for us, it's a long-term investment, and things at some point inevitably will be not as planned.
Yes.
And you need to be comfortable to have those discussions. Then we tend to build this relationship before investing, so that when we do invest, then it's a bit easier.
Yeah. And founders, take note. Take the time to have those conversations. Be candid about those conversations, because in theory, what you want is a partner that's going to see this from coast to coast, right? That is the ideal goal here, and to find an investor willing to spend that time and get that candid and vulnerability. Like, let's map this out, and what this looks like is kind of rare. So to take the time to get to know an investor.
It's as important to them than it is for us.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because it's to them, I mean, we're going to be it. Right?
Yes.
In our case, we can have kind of 10, 12 portfolio companies, and we have a little bit of diversification. But to them, it's a bit more limited. And it's as important, if not more important, to them to get to know us than for us to get to know them.
Oh, love that. Well, on that, are there any portfolio companies that you would like to shout out by name and kind of give I'm just curious, any ones in particular that should be on our radar, or we should have on the podcast, or we should just know in general about the good things they're doing?
I think that the line broke a little bit, but I think I got a gist of the question. If there is any one of our portfolio company that should be on your radar.
Radar podcast, you'd like to give a shout out, I'm just, share the good word.
Yeah. Feel free to brag on some of the,
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So some of the companies in your portfolio. Tell us who they are, what they do. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a bit the role that we tend to play because oftentimes our funders are so humble.
Yep.
In spite of their great success, it's this is something they need to learn.
Yes.
It's not natural sometimes, and but we've got one company called BioAlert Solutions, and they were one of the first in the world to come up with a technology to detect Legionella in a real-time, fully automated manner. Then developed this technology that for cooling towers mainly, in both industrial and building settings. Right now, the status quo is to send a sample to the lab, takes kind of 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And once you receive the result, it's often too late.
Yeah.
Recently, there was a big explosion in New York City, and 137 people got hospitalized, 5 dead. And their technology is being scaled around the US and Canada. They did the Vanderbilt building in Manhattan.
Oh, sure.
At the top of the building, there is a BioAlert solution box testing water in a real-time fashion. And now they're scaling up across the mining sector, hospitals. They got approved with the National Institute of Health in Maryland, and they're scaling very, very quickly. We're going to start doing some podcasts with them, and they'd be a great guest to your platform as well. This is a good one.
Yeah, very much so.
Another one that, if I may, that we have that we're really excited is called Eco Filter Tech. And they're addressing the big, huge PFAS problems that we hear so much about. And they were able to develop a polymer resin that can concentrate PFAS for ease of destruction. And their technology, why it's innovating, it's the resin itself, but it's also that they can recycle it and reuse it, the same resin, over and over and over, which reduce tremendously the operating cost.
Yeah.
And they can do it in a very environmentally friendly way. Instead of using methanol to recycle the polymer, they use a natural-based product to do that. Even though they're very small, almost pre-revenue, they've attracted the attention of some of the largest utilities in the U.S. and some major customers in Europe as well. And we're really excited about that.
Oh, that's really
awesome.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we'd never have enough time for these conversations. And so we always need to figure out what part 2 is going to look like, but just really appreciate the time that we've had today and getting to know more about the wonderful technologies that you've invested in, kind of your thesis and why Canada. That's fast. It makes sense when you think about you have water as a lab in your own backyard. So why not innovate against it, right? But I never thought about that until we got you on the podcast, Simon. So I appreciate that
it was a secret till now, but
now that's what I mean. I'm like, I never really thought about
your podcast.
That makes so much more
your
sense.
podcast, everyone's going to know about it.
Well, the secret's out. You heard it here, right?
Exactly.
Oh, that's awesome.
So.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you all for tuning in, listening to this podcast. We love getting to have these conversations with folks like Simon. So if you've enjoyed this, please like it, comment, share, send us a note, tell us who else you would love to hear from who makes water work. Thanks for listening to the Make Water Work podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss a conversation. We'd love to hear your thoughts and questions. Connect with us on LinkedIn or send us a message. Together, we can make water work for everyone.